Welcome to The Blitz, a podcast from Coram Deo Church. The Blitz is all about tackling tough topics head-on at full speed. Are you ready?
Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good whatever time of the day it is that you happen to be checking out this podcast. My name is John, pastor at Coram Deo Church, and I'll be your host today again on The Blitz. All right, guys, here we are. We just finished up a talk on Alistair Begg and gay weddings, and now we are switching to another hot topic issue, and that is the issue of abortion. I'm recording this in the month of January, and 2 weeks ago or so, we had our Sanctity of Life Sunday, which is the Sunday that we as a church set aside to deal with the issue of the Imago Dei, the intrinsic value of all humanity, all human beings, born and unborn, and specifically we address the issue of abortion. And we're going to be dealing with that today. And if you're interested, you can find that sermon at coramdalechurch.org, and it's also on our app. You can download that and find it there if you missed it or want to revisit it or just interested to hear what we said. Or what I said about that, you can find it there. But today I want to talk about abortion, and my goal is not to try and convince you that abortion is evil. Abortion is evil. It ends, it destroys, it kills an innocent life. That ought to be self-evident. But my goal is not to try to convince you of that in this podcast. Rather, I want to talk about how can we talk with others who don't share that conviction. How do you talk with people who are pro-abortion, or as they like to call it, pro-choice? Excuse me. So how do we do that? So that's what I want to talk about briefly with you this morning. So maybe it might be helpful to take some notes, grab a pen and paper, or if you got your phone, just get out the notes app and you can take some notes. But I want to start by suggesting that you need to understand how big of an issue this is. Because when it comes to the issue of abortion, sometimes it can be treated as just a word or a philosophy or a political word and not a reality. And so I think it's important when you're talking with people who do not share your conviction, when you're talking with people who are pro-abortion, there's three things I'm going to suggest. The first one is you have to understand how big of an issue this is and how important it is to get it right. So the first thing is understand what this looks like in our country, what it has looked like since the passing of Roe v. Wade in 1973. So since the passing of Roe v. Wade in 1973, the Supreme Court's ruling, which falsely declared that abortion was a violation of a woman's right to privacy. Since that ruling came down, over 60 million unborn children in our country have been killed, right? 60 million kids. And I always say it's hard to wrap your mind around 60 million. What does 60 million represent? And so I have done this in different ways, and this is my European route. But if you want to understand what 60 million aborted children is, it is the entire populations of Ireland, Norway, Finland, Denmark, Switzerland, Austria, Portugal, and Sweden combined. I believe I've done it looking at American states as well, and it's over half of the states, their entire population in our country. But think about all of Ireland, Norway, Finland, Denmark, Switzerland, Austria, Portugal, and Sweden gone. Right? That's what we're talking about. And that's just in our country. That is not a global number. That is just the amount of abortions that have taken place that we know of, because there is some estimating that is gone on. We don't know the exact number, but it's at least 60 million unborn children in our country since 1973, right? 60 million lives. That is equivalent to 10 Holocausts. It's equivalent to 100 American Civil Wars. It is the 9/11 tragedy repeated day after day after day for 55 years nonstop. 60 million is approximately the entire population of the Roman Empire in the first century. Right? So you are talking about a massive group of people. And I think it's important to articulate that, to be able to explain and express how big of an issue this is. This is not just a word we're debating over. This is not just law and policy. These are human lives that we're talking about. And sometimes in the discussion about abortion, that gets entirely lost. In fact, when you listen to, arguments or propaganda from the pro-abortion side, they won't even mention the baby at all. They'll just talk about the mothers. But abortion doesn't end the life of a mother. It ends the life of an innocent unborn child. So 60 million kids. When you're talking with somebody, it's really important to be able to convey how big, how weighty of an issue this is. And the reason I'm saying that is I've had some recent experiences that have been a little eye-opening for me, I guess I could say. One was a personal interaction on the streets in Seattle, and the other was an online interaction. So the exchange in Seattle was very interesting. I was walking with my friend, and there were two young people, probably early 20s, a guy and a girl, and they were handing out pamphlets for Planned Parenthood, and they had these balloons, and you'd think that they were promoting like a circus or something, some sort of celebration. Like, this is really, really good. We want you guys to know about this. And so they offered me one of the pamphlets, and I politely said, I'm not interested. And then I made this comment. I said, I don't like killing children. And I didn't say it like in a snarky, it was definitely a Holy Spirit moment, because I would totally say it in a way to cause trouble, but I didn't say it that way. It was a very calm, measured conversation. I'm like, no, I don't think we should be killing children. And the people who were handing these pamphlets out for Planned Parenthood looked at me like I was crazy. And one of the gals, she responded, she goes, "Oh, we don't do that. We're about caring for women in healthcare." And I looked at her, I was like, you do know that Planned Parenthood is the number one abortion provider in our country. You know that, right? And she was appalled. She was beside herself. I honestly think she didn't know that. I think that she thought that Planned Parenthood, hands out birth controls and, birth control and condoms and provides, women's health care. That's what she thought. But when I told her, I was like, no, that organization actually is the leading provider of abortion in our country. She was a little bit shocked. And then I asked him, I said, do you know what happens? And I think she even said, no, we don't do that. And I was like, no, actually you do. And I asked her, do you know what happens during a chemical abortion? Do you know what happens to the unborn child? And they both just looked, mortified by this. And so the light changed and I walked on, and that was the end of the exchange. But I walked away going, oh my gosh, they don't know. They have been recruited and have been lied to and have bought into this propaganda about Planned Parenthood and, supporting moms and women's health and women's rights. They don't have a clue what's going on. And that was it was very interesting, because I was like, I think there's probably more people who are like that, more people who have bought into these lies, and they don't actually know what's going on. And so that's why I'm saying, understand what's actually going on. Familiarize yourself with the statistics and the numbers. And in your conversations with people, try to convey that information. 60 million people, multiple European countries, half the states almost in our country gone. Like, that's what we're talking about, okay? So first of all, wrap your head around the data. Understand that. Also, you need to be, I would say, well-versed in statistics, okay? So I had an online interaction with some local person who just absolutely hates me, and couldn't hold back. So they started going after me online, and it was all about abortion. And in the back and forth, there were a couple things that I realized. One is that this person was trying to convince me that there are mothers giving birth to brain dead children, having to watch their children, die in the delivery room. And this is happening all over the place. It's happening all the time. It's a traumatic event for the mothers. And all of this is because abortion isn't available, which is really ironic because abortion is available everywhere. So I don't know what he's talking about. But his argument, which is an argument that many people make, is that, hey, these mothers, like these babies they're not viable. They can't survive. There are massive medical risks here, and medical concern and medical risk is the number one reason why abortion is so important. So I'm telling you, it's important to understand what the statistics are and why is it that women get abortions. There's two resources I would recommend. One is Abort 73, which is a pro-life website and organization that helps provide resources to people to engage in these conversations and to push back against abortion in our country. The other one is the Guttmacher Institute, and the Guttmacher Institute is pretty much where Abort 73 gets all of their data from. The Guttmacher Institute is a pro-abortion organization, and you can go to their website. It's GUTTMACHER.org. That's Guttmacher.org. And they publicize all of the information that is available, and they are pulling from CDC and NIH. And what you will find there is that less than half of 1% of abortions are due to rape. We know from other resources that less than 0.01% are due to incest. 3% of abortions are as a result of fetal health problems. That's 3%. Okay, that's a health issue with the child. And then 4% are reported as physical health problems. That would presumably be a health problem with the mother. And the problem here is that health problems is such a large category, you don't know what actually qualifies as a legitimate health problem. But those three categories account for 7.5%, which means that 92.5% of abortions have nothing to do with rape, incest, or significant health issues. Right? You can find out at the Guttmacher Institute that the leading reasons for abortion are a woman has a career that she doesn't want to take a break from. The woman is not ready. The woman does not want to be a single mother. The woman does not want to have more kids. The mother can't afford a child, or the mother is simply not ready for the child. That's over 92% of the abortions. So the idea that abortions are necessary because there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of kids being born brain dead and mothers are having to go through these traumatic experiences is patently false. And as I was going back and forth with this guy online, I tried to refute his claim that there are all these brain dead babies being born. And so I cited him studies from the CDC and NIH and from the Guttmacher, and he just wouldn't listen to it. But those are all organizations that support his position. So you need to do the work of knowing what the numbers actually are, so that when somebody claims something that's false, right, you not only hear it as false, you're not going to be swayed by it, but you can also refute it because you have done the work. And again, Abort 73 and the Guttmacher Institute, you can get all of those numbers. They are readily available. So you need to know the statistics. You need to know why it is that women have abortions so that you're not caught off guard by these crazy arguments. The other thing is that you need to make the other side, and by other side, I mean you need to make the pro-abortion person own their position, okay? And what I mean by that is you need to make them own the words. So I had made a comment about abortion kills life. And this guy who loves me online, he was pushing back, saying, why are you using these words? These are dehumanizing to women. You're victimizing women, blah, 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 blah. And I just started replying with quotes from leaders of the pro-abortion movement. And these quotes do not mince words. They are very clear as to what these leaders and what these movements are all about. So, for example, Faye Waddleton who was at one time the president of Planned Parenthood, and I believe to this day is the longest reigning president of Planned Parenthood, the largest abortion provider in the United States. She said that, this is her quote, direct quote, I think we have deluded ourselves into believing that people don't know that abortion is killing. So any pretense that abortion is not killing is a signal of our ambivalence, a signal that we cannot say, yes, it kills a fetus. So her language as the president of Planned Parenthood is, yes, this is about killing. It is about killing. And Ferretti, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that last name right, but she served as chief executive of the largest independent abortion provider in the UK. She was in a debate, and she said this: we can accept that the embryo is a living thing in the fact that it has a beating heart, that it has its own genetic system within it. It's clearly human in the sense that it's not a gerbil, and we can recognize that it is human life, right? So the idea that when abortion doesn't kill a human being, it just kills tissue, no, I'm sorry, that's not what the other side actually says. That's not what their leaders are saying. They acknowledge that it is human life. Naomi Wolf, who is a prominent feminist author and an ardent supporter of abortion rights, she said, clinging to a rhetoric about abortion in which there is no life and no death, we entangle our beliefs in a series of self-delusions, fibs, and evasions. And we risk becoming precisely what our critics charge us with being: callous, selfish, and casually destructive men and women who share a cheapened view of life. We need to contextualize the fight to defend abortion rights within a moral framework that admits that the death of a fetus is a real death. Right? So she realizes we're talking about the death of a human being. Bernard Nathanson, who was the co-founder of an organization called NARAL, which is a primary advocate for abortion rights in North America. He said, there is simply no doubt that even the early embryo is a human being. All its genetic coding and all its features are indisputably human. As to being, there is no doubt that it exists, is alive, is self-directed, and is not the same being as the mother, and is therefore a unified whole. Right? That's not tissue. That's not a clump of tissue. That's a human being. So maybe what I'll try and do is post some of these quotes in the description of this podcast. But it's important for you to know what the other side is actually saying, so that you can use those very words in your discussions with other people who have been deceived and have bought into the pro-abortion propaganda. You need to know the quotes. You need to know the words that they use: life, murder, killing. Yes, those are the words that are being used. And last but not least, and this one is a little bit trickier, but when you're discussing this issue with somebody who is defending or supporting a pro-abortion position, listen to their words. And as I said earlier, don't just make them own the words of their movement leaders. You need to do that, and you need to know those quotes and be equipped with them. But you also need to make them own the words, their own words, the things that they say. Okay, so I'll give you an example of this. As I was discussing this online, and often when you get into these discussions, the other side will just start calling you names, which is, of course, what happened. They didn't want to, discuss statistics or reports or quotes from movement leaders. They just wanted to call me a bigot and a racist and whatever, which is fine. But pay attention to the words that people use, because there were two people that were kind of going after me, and they both affirmed that that deciding to have an abortion was a gut-wrenching decision, right? When a woman decides to have an abortion, it is a gut-wrenching decision. That was their words. And so I just started asking, why is it gut-wrenching? What is gut-wrenching about having a medical procedure in which a little bit of tissue is removed from your body, right? If you have a skin tag and you get that removed, is that gut wrenching? If you go in to get a shot, maybe it's I don't know, it's a tetanus shot or whatever, is that gut wrenching? If you go in for, your annual physical or whatever to get your tonsils looked at, is that gut wrenching, right? And clearly it's not. And so the person that was trying to attack me, they knew intrinsically that there is something significant going on in an abortion. And they said it was gut wrenching. And so I asked them very clearly, very respectfully, very directly, what is gut wrenching about an abortion? What makes it gut wrenching? And of course, they couldn't say anything. And you might ask, well, what's the benefit of that? Well, if I gauge the benefit of that based on their interactions with me, I'd say, well, nothing, because they quit talking at that point. But I think, and this is coming from, I'm using the language of a guy named Greg Koukl, who has a website called Stand to Reason. He's an apologist, and he talks about how Christians should approach apologetics in general. And I'm applying that to this particular thing. So he does do stuff on abortion, but this is a comment he made just about apologetics in general. He said that our goal should be to put a pebble in the shoe of the person that we're discussing, meaning we're probably not going to convince that person in the conversation. We're not going to convert them. They're not going to change their mind right then and there. Although if that happens, praise God, that's amazing. But our expectation, our hope should be, can we put a pebble in their shoe? Can we say something or get them to acknowledge something that's going to stick with them a week down the road? And they're going to have to just slow down a little bit and rethink it. And I think comments like, what is gut-wrenching? What is so gut-wrenching about it? I think that accomplishes that. It kind of causes somebody to step back and go, why do I think that that's gut-wrenching? So the three things. One, understand the how big of an issue this is and be able to explain that in terms of how many lives have been affected by abortion. Know the statistics, know why it is that women choose to have an abortion so that you can defend yourself. And the resources that I have appealed to in this podcast, and I always appeal to, are resources that the other side would accept. Meaning when you're quoting the NIH, the National Institute of Health, or the CDC, or Guttmacher, these are all organizations that are, two of them, they claim to be neutral, but they're really pro-abortion, and the Guttmacher is unapologetically pro-abortion. Use their numbers and appeal to those numbers, and make sure you're aware of them so that you can communicate with somebody. Make sure you know what the leaders of the movement are saying, what words they are using, so that you can ask people, what do they think about those words? Are they okay saying that abortion kills a human life? And then when you're talking to people, right, listen to their words and make them own their words, right? And these are three things that I think can maybe help us in our conversations about abortion. And one last thing, as we think about abortion, right, we almost always think Supreme Court and national, and there's a reason to be thinking about that, because there are federal laws that can be passed to protect human life. That's great, but don't ever prioritize national over local. Right, we have very, very, very little say as to what happens that goes on at the national level, but we actually do have some say and some influence at the local level. And so what I mean by that is conversations with people around you, right? That matters. That can actually accomplish something. Getting involved, whether that means joining prayer groups. We do a Prayer for Life thing every year where we gather across the street from Planned Parenthood and we pray that God would end abortion in our country. You can participate in things like that. There are demonstrations throughout the community where people come together to demonstrate against abortion. There are clinics in our community that are actively caring for women, providing health care, supporting them, walking with them through pregnancy so that they can have these children and these children can be saved from Planned Parenthood. Those are great organizations that you can think about volunteering or giving to, or at least praying for. There's things that you can do locally. So don't think of it primarily as a national level, a national issue. Think of it first as a local issue and find ways to get involved. And there are things that you can do locally that will make a significant difference. I know that there are children in our community who are alive, whose lives have been saved, and not just their lives have been saved, but these mothers have been saved from the trauma of abortion because of the work that local organizations and people are doing. It's great work, and you can get involved in it. So yes, know what's happening nationally, but really, really get involved. Focus locally. Know your data, know the statistics, know the language, and don't be afraid to get in these conversations and realize that a lot of people that you're going to talk with don't understand what's actually happening. They don't actually understand what's going on. And so speaking the truth to them is really, really, really important. All right, that's it for this episode. Hope that it was helpful and enjoyable. Again, check out those websites, guttmacher.org, abort73.com. And we'll see you soon. Take care.